We honor First Lieutenant Leo Mark Mayo. He was born on March 18, 1918, in West Monroe, Louisiana, small city outside of Alexandria. His family was in the Confederate War, and the women saved the grain to save the family. Even though they were assigned to the Confederate, they were very nice to their slaves and given the name Mayo to different ones in the town. This is World War I, and the men dug trenches. Bill Mayo was one of his uncles. Different Dysons were in the different wars, and they would be hunting, gathering chickens, and work in the lumber fields right there in West Monroe. This is his father, one of Mayo triplets. This is his mother, Melissa Dyson. She was one of 3 sisters. They came from a very large family, all in North Louisiana. Mayos were well known in Ouachita Parish. Mayo Furniture is where his father worked. Joseph Oscar and Melissa Dyson Mayo would be married. Melissa Mayo had their firstborn pass away. The secondborn was stillborn. He was the 3rd son for the Mayo name. He graduated from Ouachita Parish High School. By 1936 to 1938, he had received his pilot's license in aeronautics. Many family members, like the 3 Mayo triplets, would write letters. His favorite uncle was Napoleon Bonaparte Mayo, a veteran, a teacher, and a mentor. Some owned gas stations, the Mayo Furniture Store, and some were in the Vernon County Parish Associations, leaders in the community, Commissioner of Public Works, all important people in the town of West Monroe. Most guys had girlfriends they would never see again, and other schoolmates would go off to different countries and serve in different parts of the war. Freddie Sheffield was from their school, and he knew June, the sister. He would go off to Egypt. His youngest sister, Kate Mayo, would keep up his spirits in the letters. One reading, "Kate Mayo, you little liar, you know I didn't eat that much, but you ought to see me now." They loved talking about food and cakes and ice cream. While being a flying cadet in Maxwell Field, Alabama, September 41, he would write his mother and talk about their days at the camp, National Guard that he was in. Then he would send pictures, and they would send pictures of the sisters from down there, and he would always wonder when he would get sent over for the war. Most letters talked about how the food was plain over there. Coming from Louisiana, he needed spice in his food. Also, the guys, Southern boys, he would talk about, won different awards for the ground gunnery. He placed 3rd. Tragic news that the war has started December 7th, 1941 in Pearl Harbor. The Japanese hit many airplanes. What was he going to do? His sister, Norma Mayo, married Scotty Duncan. He was killed in action. She then became a single mother and learned to help others. June Mayo was the other sister, which we come from. She married Henry or Hank Tillman. Before the war, many couples got married because no one was sure of what the outcome would be. He soon went off to join the Army Air Corps. He would write 3 crashes on Sunday and 1 man died. The plane was a healthy respect for limitations of speed and weight. The men were scared, the power in the planes, and soon he would be moving to South Carolina. Later he got sent to Craig's Field. I don't know whether we'll get off for 5 days or not. I am growing a bay window that promises to outdo any Mayo. And all the letters would talk about him getting sent overseas. Soon after, he got his Southeast Air Corps training certificate in 1942, Greenville, Mississippi. Then he got a telegram to transfer to the 55th Fighter Squadron in Tampa, Florida, Drew Field. He would write in letters back home, "Why stand when you have a good seat here at the beach?" He would later talk about the leather on the jackets were sun-dried. He was a true photographer, and many that knew him had great photos taken. Here are a few of his comrades and pilots. I believe these guys were from the 55th Fighter Squadron. And then later, he took a lot of pictures when he would go into the 5th Air Force Group. He would write in letters that they were flying 2 to 5 hours a day and had 10 to 15 hours of gunnery training a day. After that, God only knows what and where they would go. Some other pilots were P.J. Dahl, McGuire, McDonald, Charles Lindenberg, Bong, Ferdinand Hansen, Howard Hedrick, many more. He then later, in the 5th Air Force Group, joined the 475th Fighter Squadron and 432nd Satan's Angels. He would fly the Lockheed aircraft, the P-38s. They would disassemble them here in California and reassemble them in Brisbane, Australia. As a first lieutenant, he would carry a pistol and a camera. By 1943, he found himself commanding others, and the indigenous people would help build roads for their aircraft. He was in Southwest Pacific War Theater. Despite the hardships experienced and living conditions, Mayo's letters continuously talked about the great experiences. General MacArthur, whom he alludes was a fine leader and a swell man. Mayo would receive an oak leaf cluster in lieu of a Ground Air Medal Award for participation in over 25 operation flight missions. On November 2nd, 1943, he took off in a P-38 Lightning airplane. From Dobodura, they would escort B-25 Mitchell bombers over to Rabaul. Rabaul was known for the POWs. They encountered 60 Japanese fighters, all that left the Caruana airfield. An eyewitness, Howard Hedrick, reported, "I was flying number 4 in Lieutenant Mayo's flight when the accident occurred. Mayo had come right up behind a Tony and firing upon him from 200 yards back. The Tony started burning immediately, but Lieutenant Mayo kept closing in. It exploded with Lieutenant Mayo was very close, and the large piece from the Tony shaved Mayo's right wing off. Mayo bailed out into the open waters and landed about 50 feet offshore near Cape Mope, New Britain, all in the area of Papua New Guinea. Another fight that happened was near the Empress Augusta Bay, Bougainville area, all in the southwest Pacific Ocean. For the next 2 days, more escorts would happen with the B-26 bombers. Then the 3 days of bad weather, so no flying would occur. The 475th Fighter Squadron took 30% loss of damages all in this area. First Lieutenant Leo Mark Mayo, Monroe Man, lightning raid downs enemy planes as fighters protect American bombers. The letters were sent home, the newspaper articles were written, and everyone began to wonder where he was. Monroe Man in lightning raid downs enemy planes as fighters protect American bombers. For his achievement with aerial combat, he would receive a Distinguished Flying Cross, a Purple Heart, 2 Air Medals, and the Presidential Award over Ori Bay, New Guinea. Over the next 3 years, his foot locker would be returned home from Brisbane, Australia, and then settlements paid to his mother for his sacrifice in World War II. News traveled slow back home. They would receive war rations, and one aunt, Norma Duncan, would go to LSU, become one of the first women lawyers. The father never got to see his son return. He passed away in 1946. The mother and 5 sisters waited for Leo Mark Mayo. This is Elizabeth Mayo and her husband. This is Nita Mayo and her husband, L.E. He also served in the military. This is Norma Duncan. Some say she got the news of her own husband, Scotty Duncan, that he was killed in action the same day her brother was missing in action. This is another sister, Kate Mayo Robinson, and her husband, Cecil, who also served in the military. This is another sister, June Mayo. She's the one that kept a lot of the records, in which there I am in information with Hank Tillman serving in World War II. All the family stayed together, and everyone always had hope. The government gives sympathy for their loss. Since 1944, they had been searching for him. All the sisters had waited a very long time, and most of them passed away. As a child, I would hear all the stories from Papa Hank Tillman. He, till the day he died, thought that the government would come through and find him, Leo Mark Mayo. As time kept moving on, I heard great stories from a lot of my uncles, Mark and Michael Tillman, and my mother. They would always talk about the wonderful war heroes we had in our family. We were excited when we found out that they were having reunions for the 475th Fighter Group and 432nd Fighter Squadron. Most of the pilots were becoming elderly, and they still honor the missing in action and the killed in action. First Lieutenant Leo Mark Mayo will always be remembered as an ace. In World War II, 1943, in Louisiana, they have a memorial with his name on the wall. My children have already looked at it and hopefully will carry on the memory. Technology has come a long way, and they're finding every day soldiers and airplanes and so much more. On March 2018, that would be the time that you would be 100. And we, in all this time, have never forgotten you.